All right, folks, we're back with another edition of the Red and White Podcast. I'm your host, Evan, here as always with my co-host, Dustin and Marshall. We did not cover the spread, 24 and a half. That's about all I can say for it. What do you have to say?
It was trash, man. I mean, you can buy into the, well, a win's a win thing, but I don't know. I don't even know. I don't have anything to say about it. Everything that I said last week, pretty much the same shit applies this week. We can't call defensive plays, and we can't or won't run the ball. So, just a broken
It's so
record.
frustrating. It's so frustrating watching this defense. And I don't know how many times we've done it. I'd love to go back and look at how many times we've just had awful first halves and then come out and, either held them to a low point total or, shut them out in the second half. Well, like, why? What's happening with this first half?
Starts.
Yes.
I don't understand. Yeah.
What is going on? What is wrong with the preparation? This happens all the time. I mean, you gave up a Carter Finley record for most yards, receiving yards to an opponent, to Marshall. And it's not like Randy Moss is out there anymore. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know what was going on with it. I know we said last week Marshall's a well-coached team, but they shouldn't have been leading after the first quarter or giving us that much trouble. I mean, that was preparation for that game really concerns me. It was the same thing with the South Carolina game. They started slow, and we won the second half, but it was too late at that point.
Yeah, I'm all for having a coach that can make second half adjustments, but they shouldn't have to be this drastic.
Yeah,
it should be. The second half should be, especially against a team like this, firming up the very minuscule things that went wrong in the first half. Instead of, okay, well, what are we going to have to do to win this game? That shouldn't be decided at halftime against a team like this. That's unacceptable. I mean, just terrible.
The talent gap alone, it shouldn't have been that close.
No, not at all.
It's just, yeah, that's the frustrating part. And I know you've been saying it for a long time, and I've always found it hard to justify because the outcome has been okay. Like, if you look at the defensive numbers, the outcome, it averages out. Like last year, the rushing defense was, top 10 in the country or whatever it may be. But the gaping holes that they have in other areas, I'm not on board with Huxtable. I think it's a real issue. I think his scheme and philosophy has always been sit back and base defense, and that doesn't work. I mean, I don't think that works for us. I'm not a fan. It's really frustrating.
I think for you to run that kind of coverage, your secondary needs to be the star of the unit,
right?
Because they can make up those gaps, those coverage gaps. Those lack of press, but when your line is the star, you've got to account for what that's going to cause the other team to do, and that's quick passes and just, I don't know. I think if you lack in skill in the secondary, you have to make up for it with aggressiveness from those players, not just from the line, and it's going to be the same stuff every week until we do that.
Yeah, and that's like and I hate to pick on them, but you knew they were going to pick on Alston.
Yeah,
South Carolina did it, and then Marshall comes right out of the gate and exploited it bad, and it didn't seem like we helped him at all with cheating to one side, or I don't know what it was. We're trying something else. It just wasn't working. Now, a couple of those plays were really nice throws and catches, right? You can't hate on that. It's not going to get them all, but man, school record yards. I mean, something's not working, and Marshall found the weakness and exploited the hell out of it, and that's concerning because what is Clemson or Louisville going to do in that situation?
Yeah.
Or Florida State in 2 weeks, even if with their backup quarterback. People have been tweeting at us about Mike Stevens. Now, I like Mike Stevens at all. Is he going to fix that issue? I don't know, man. if there's that big a gap between Alston and Mike Stevens, then you know there might be some bigger problems there. I don't know. That was really frustrating watching that happen and watching. Here's another question for you: kickoffs. Are we not? Are we intentionally not kicking it in the end zone?
Man, I don't know how to explain anything that has to do with any part of kicking the ball with us. I'm not going to try. Um, I think if you have the leg to put it in the end zone, it should be in the end zone
Yeah.
because
I
you can't predict how a team's going to return. You don't know what lane's going to open. That's pretty much the most unpredictable part of a game. Not to mention the fact that if you're not, defending a return, that takes away a chance of injuries. Um, I don't think kickoffs they shouldn't really be an issue in football anymore. They should most always go into the end zone.
Yeah, I don't understand that at all, man. Like somebody on Twitter said that they were intentionally kicking it short, kicking high, pooch coverage kicks. And like that's a bit strange. It was weird because on the opening kickoff there was a 15 or 20 mile an hour wind behind us, and Bambar kicks it to the 5. I'm like, what in the world?
Yeah.
Like that's just booted out of the back of the end zone. I don't. That dude took one to the house again. We talked about it last week. He took one to the house on us, and thankfully it was called back from a questionable holding penalty. But I mean, don't kick it to that guy, and don't give these guys opportunities to do it. Just out of the back of the end zone. I don't know. We've talked about Chris Dunn, the top-rated kicker who committed to the Pack a while ago. I mean, he can't get here fast enough. And he actually just followed us on Twitter, so if he's listening, what's up, Chris? Come help us.
Please, God.
Yeah, please. So, come help us. I don't know, man. It's frustrating to watch. I don't know what the thought is behind it. I'm not a special teams expert. I'm not an expert in anything, but that just seems strange to me. Marshall didn't score in the second half, so that's good. But, man, like you said, why does it take a half to get there? That's not encouraging.
No, that's not going to work against. I mean, when conference play starts, that's done. We can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
We can't dig holes against decent teams. Maybe Syracuse, but other than that,
Syracuse, man, I expected more from them. Gross.
Yeah, it could be worse. So.
Yeah. Positive things. I don't think there's any penalties until the second, third strings got in there late. So that was good. Played a much cleaner game from that respects. Didn't turn the ball over. Got a couple turnovers late, which helped. Didn't get any in the first half. That's not going to win. That's not going to do us any good. I don't know. Overall, it was Marshall. A win's a win, but there are some glaring holes. I mean, I think it's pretty apparent.
Yeah. Enough of that.
Let me ask you this. Finley looks good, right? Finley's playing well for the most part. I don't think he had a great game. I think if he goes back and watches the video, he missed some open guys, missed some reads. But, I'm nitpicking right now because his numbers are good. They scored the ball. Offense was okay. I thought Jalen McClendon would get some reps. I thought they had packages for him. Why isn't he getting in the game?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess if you look at last year, we used him when it looked like there needed to be a change of pace. And there hasn't been that situation yet, aside from part of South Carolina, I guess. But I'd much rather see him like in the fourth quarter of this game, a few drives. I can't see him sticking around if he's not going to get to play at all,
I mean, he stuck around this far, this much at least.
But he got some action last year. If that doesn't change,
yeah, that's true. I mean, this week I would expect to see him a lot more playing Furman.
I would hope so. I think.
Yeah.
One other issue is drink too attached to Finley. Is that a reason that McClendon's not getting in? If it is,
I don't think it's the
whatever.
reason he's not getting in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not crazy about, switching up quarterbacks throughout the game
Right.
generally, but
Right.
if we're up, especially this week, if he doesn't play any this week, then there's something going on. I would think there's something weird.
Yeah. I can agree with that.
So
So I missed on my prediction. We didn't have 200-yard rushers. I only think we had one. um, but Kelvin Harmon had 100 yards. He's ridiculous, man.
Yeah.
He's so good. He's really good. I mean, he makes catches, just carrying defenders, getting first downs. I mean, unbelievable. And I think that, we talk about the run game or lack thereof. And I'm guessing we're playing to our strengths to a degree because we have Harmon, CJ Riley, man. When he gets the ball and gets going, he looks really good, man. He's like a deer running down the sideline. And if Gavin Locklear, for some reason, I don't know why Gavin Locklear gets so much playing time. Dude missed a block on that CJ Riley swing pass. That, I mean, he scores if Locklear even gets a hand on the guy coming behind him.
right.
And then he was off sync on a couple. They had a double move set up, and he and Finley were just not on the same page. But he was wide open, and somebody was out of position or bad throw. I don't know what it was, but he continues to get in the game. And I'm curious. I think he's a practice superstar, but I haven't seen it in the games. But anyway, what I was saying is, I think, your comment last week about the lack of rushing game. I'm guessing they're playing to the strengths with Harmon, Lewis, Jacoby Myers, Jalen Samuels. They're just throwing the ball to those guys. I think that's probably why we're not rushing it so much. Is that fair?
I guess. At the same time, though, these are the games where you need to work on what you can't bank on having every week.
Mm-hmm.
Same principle as getting the backup QB in. If you're not as confident in your running game, use it when you can to make it better.
Yeah.
And we're not going to be able to throw the ball like we have been when we play stout defenses.
Right.
It's just not going to work. So you can say, well, all right, if we're doing what works now, that's fine, but that's not going to work later on, and we need to be prepared for that. And I just don't see how this is helping with that at all. Plus, I just like running the ball. But
I didn't go back and watch the South Carolina game, but I did this game. And Marshall blitzed a lot. They brought a lot of guys a lot of the time. And so I'm guessing that is part of the reason why we're not running it. I mean, if they're going to drop 8 in the box and come after us, it makes it really hard to run the ball. And you can tell we had a lot of negative rushing yard plays. And that's because Marshall's linebackers, man, they were coming the whole time. So I don't know if you have to throw in some play actions or, something to kind of mix it up in that situation. But Marshall brought a lot of pressure, and that's probably why we're throwing it in so many circumstances like that as well. I mean, I think that's something to do with it. I don't know. I didn't go back and see South Carolina and see if they were doing the same thing, but Furman this week, and then Florida State, they need to figure that out.
There's just, even if they're stacking the box on pure talent, we should be able to run the ball on Marshall.
Yeah, you're right. You would think.
I don't know. That's a big problem if we can't. The runs that we did try, like you said, didn't work out too well. That's bad. That's very bad.
Yeah.
Richardson's coming back, but
yeah, so that'll be interesting to see how it impacts it. Going back and watching the film, I didn't see a concern from his side. No. So with Witt playing, the bigger gaps or the bigger holes seem to be, or concerns, not holes, it's the wrong word. Running up the middle, left guard was more of a concern, at least from the few plays that I saw that were negative rushing yard plays. Their linebackers were coming off the left guard, and I don't know if somebody wasn't picking up a block or they weren't communicating properly, but he was coming through fairly often and living in the backfield. So that was definitely a concern. Yeah. Anyway, it's Marshall. They won this week's Furman. Give us a little Furman preview. I don't know anything about them.
Furman's trash. They're 0-2. They might not be. I don't know. If you're in their division, they might not be that terrible, but they've opened up with 2 losses against Elon and Wofford. So
Yeah.
they're bad enough that I couldn't even find a line for the game against us on Saturday. So if they're not taking bets, it's going to be, or should be, bad. So they're going to run the ball or try constantly. First game against Elon, they threw for 138 but ran for 258. A couple of those runs were like extremely long, like maybe one over 80 yards though. Then Wofford threw for 224 and ran for 159, so they commit to the run. But they shouldn't be able to run like that on us. So it should. Their quarterback's not proven. It's going to be interesting. This is the one game our secondary should shine, but at the same time, we could also make their quarterback a star. So it's hard to find anything on Furman. That's all I got, really.
Yeah, it's just one of those games where I imagine they won't show us. We won't show much, given Florida State next week. They'll probably play very conservative. At least play with what they've already played. They're not going to show any new plays. You're not going to see anything fancy. You won't see any major changes. I think it's going to be a pretty conservative game. I mean, if we don't win by 30, I'd probably be annoyed.
Yeah.
But it should be a lot of rushing, a lot of the same things we've seen before. So don't expect anything new, for sure. One thing to note, I think, going back and watching that game from the Marshall game, is Jermaine Pratt. I think he's playing excellent at linebacker. I imagine he's going to start to see more time, which is hard because you got 2 seniors playing linebackers. But Pratt, I mean, I think he's going to be hard to keep off the field. So keep an eye on number 3 on our defense there. I think that'll be interesting. State wins big, not exciting game. That's all I got for that one. It's Furman.
Yeah, there's not much of a preview, so sorry guys.
Yeah, there's your Furman preview.
You can go watch a Furman replay if you want, but I'm sure still not going to. So
yeah, no chance. All right, so let's take a little bit look around the league, around the country. Ohio State gets body bagged by Lincoln Riley and Oklahoma.
Man, typical
That was
Big Ten.
So good to see. I loved watching that.
Imagine if Lincoln Riley had went to ECU though.
Oh Christ, please. I don't know, man. I was tweeting about it while I was watching that game. Watching that Oklahoma offense is when it's clicking. When Lincoln Riley's offense, when it's in motion. I mean, he was just cutting Ohio State to pieces. It was brutal, and it's a bunch of guys that you've never heard of. I mean, even they said it's like, yeah, we have a bunch of no-namers. But man, they looked. I mean, that offense is just pretty. It's balance. His play calls are just unbelievable. I mean, he knows exactly what to do to just drive somebody crazy. Oklahoma really looked good. I was surprised. I mean, they look really good though.
Yeah, I had them in my, we talked about top 4, I think it was last week, and I was high on them and dogged Ohio State, which, I should have carried through to our Vegas segment of the show.
Yeah.
But, Ohio State is, I don't know, I'm just, like I said last week, until they prove something to me, that whole conference is Yeah, they look great against each other, but
yep, I can see it. And then especially people Ohio State's saying they have concerns with their quarterback play, or not Ohio State, but prognosticators are, questioning the Buckeyes and JT Barrett. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But who's your new top 4 after week 2?
Guess I'll go Bama 1, Oklahoma 2. 3 and 4. I don't know where to put It'd be Clemson and USC. I just don't know the order.
Yeah, yeah.
USC impressed me. I thought
Me
they'd
too.
lose one at home, honestly.
No, that was the other one you got wrong. We'll come back to that.
The one I got wrong. But no, I thought they'd lose one at home, and they looked really good. So it's easy to pick a top four when you take one of the Power 5 conferences completely out of the equation. So the Big Ten is done. So
The Red and White Podcast, throwing shade on the Big Ten consistently year after year.
don't add us. So
If some Ohio State fan is listening to our podcast, they've got issues.
what are your top four?
It's the same thing. Bama, Oklahoma, Clemson, USC. I put them in that order. They both impressed me. Clemson's defense really impressed me against Auburn. I mean, Auburn didn't do anything in the second half. Didn't even get close to doing anything.
See, I put
And
them
USC.
higher, but I just don't. I don't have faith in Auburn at all.
Yeah, I mean that's part of it too. Auburn's ranked, top 15 every year, and every year in the last decade they've fallen
Yeah.
slowly out. They lose every week and they still are ranked.
Yeah. That
So-
name, man.
Yeah, it's Gus Malzahn will be looking for a new job at the end of this year. That's for sure. Clemson looked good though. But USC, I was with you, man. I was really impressed with USC. Stanford usually plays pretty close in that game, but dude made all the throws. Their wide receivers were making plays. I mean, it was just it was all around good, good performance, and they're really impressed. So they'll be a tough out. That'll be interesting to see. I'd love to see Oklahoma, Alabama, and like I said, Clemson, USC. I mean, I think those would be great matchups. That'd be a great playoff.
It's just the same thing every year. It's so hard to judge the West Coast teams because I go to sleep. So
yeah, yeah.
I'm an old man. I'm asleep before those 10:30 kickoffs are over. Either I'm tired or I'm drunk. So
And it's a shame.
That Boise State good football.
That Boise State Washington State game. I was watching it early on at the bar, and Washington State was just not looking good. And apparently they came back down 21 or something in the fourth quarter, and then won in triple overtime. Yeah. I hate that I didn't see that, but it is what it is. Good old Pac-12, Pac-15, whatever it is at this point. They're talking about you want to talk about one lopsided division, man. I think it's the Pac-12 West is awful. Arizona State, Arizona, Utah. Utah's okay. I don't even know who else is in there, but it's just not good.
Yeah, it's almost as bad as the other side of the ACC. So
throwing jabs, I like it.
Yeah, well. Anyway,
you didn't hit USC and Stanford last week. So let's take a look at our other Vegas results. What you got for us?
Man, you saw right before we started recording that this is apparently locked now, but it'll eventually open up. But if you can get Virginia Tech minus 17.5 against ECU, my God. I mean, ECU is a dumpster fire. Absolutely horrendous.
I can't believe I didn't mention it before now. I started watching the first half of that game, and West Virginia just body bagged them, man. It was 40-3 at halftime.
Yeah. And
I don't think ECU got a first down or something. I mean, it was awful.
We could score on them.
They didn't have any fight in them. And it's just another second week in a row, and you're looking at ECU like, why they fire Ruffin McNeil? You don't know. I mean, they just look like they don't care, man. They look dead.
The DC, didn't they?
Yeah, they kind of forced him out. That Rick Smith guy, he was old, and he had some funny comments. Man, I wish I had that thing still on me. He made some jab towards ECU after they got whipped by. I'll see if I can pull it up. Whipped by JMU. I have it here somewhere. It was really good. Here it is. I tried to be as positive as I could going into the season, but I should have known better. After being on the coaching staff last year, when you don't go live in practice and let the kids hit, you wind up playing like a bunch of pansies. This is coming from a 40-year coaching veteran. So this is their former defensive coordinator. And this is that's what he said after they got whipped by JMU, but it applies to West Virginia too. It actually applies to us. This is what we were saying last week is if we're not hitting in practice, you don't go live. I mean, you come out looking ill prepared.
Yeah.
But ECU, man, they look so bad. They look really bad. My ECU friends are on suicide watch. It's ugly. So I'm with you on Virginia Tech over ECU. I mean, if that line opens up, I'm not sure why it locked. Who somebody's injured, but Virginia Tech should just steamroll them.
Yeah. You can have a mediocre offense and score 50 on them. So.
Right. I got Louisville over UNC last week. Heels gave him a scare, but Lamar Jackson. He ends up pulling away, and they won by 20, I think, at the end of the game.
Man, their line is so bad, though.
They have some issues, too. They have a lot of issues that are covered up by having Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, like their line is as bad as the Seahawks.
Yeah.
And also not good. So
yeah,
that's going to show up, though. He's not going to be able to mask that all year. When he starts playing the Florida State and Clemson's and the vaulted NC State defense, that's going to be a problem. So
I need to put this out there for the fans and for the people taking your gambling advice. If Dustin puts out a Twitter pick, he just informed me before we started recording that it's not official.
No,
so it doesn't go on the record.
We keep a track of the lock. Plus, I put stuff out that I don't bet on. So I'll tell you.
Because he dropped Ohio Purdue last week, and I said, don't sleep on Purdue. Jeff Brom is doing a fantastic job there. You think they're going to do anything in the Big Ten? Who knows? Big Ten's trash.
Yeah, but they're trash.
They're better than Ohio.
Yeah,
I knew that line was bad. And then
goddamn, why didn't you bet it then?
I did bet it.
Did you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Then why didn't you tweet a lock of the week?
Because I already had one. Yeah. There was another one. I forgot what the other game was, too, that you missed. Oh, Nebraska-Oregon we were talking about. You had the Ducks 14. Now, they were steamrolling them. So, that one could have gone either way, but Nebraska covered.
Yeah, just so we're clear, I came out very positive over the weekend, so you can dog it all you want, but it was a good week with the books, so.
Yeah. South Carolina trucked Mizzou. I thought that was interesting. Mizzou might not be any good. They scored 70 points the week before, but South Carolina went to Missouri and whipped them. So, like we said, the South Carolina team might not be too bad. It'll be interesting to watch how that one progresses throughout the year. Who you got your lock of the week? You said Virginia Tech, ECU.
Yeah.
I like a couple of them this week. I'll probably go with LSU -7 over Mississippi State. LSU right now seems to be on a roll.
It's like their offense is just amazing.
You just stole my segue. I was going to roll right into that one for you.
Man, I get aroused when you start talking about Matt Canada. So,
so before we get into the Matt Canada watch, Clemson Louisville 3-point spread. Clemson's favored at Louisville. What do you think happens here?
Clemson. I'm telling you that's going to be the coming out party for that Louisville O-line, and I mean coming out in a very bad way. So, I mean, I dogged Auburn earlier, but the line is never really a problem at Auburn, and Clemson's defense controlled that. Lamar Jackson's good, but he's not going to win the Heisman again. And I'd say this is this game is a reason why you'll the whole thing it's going to be.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I feel like I think Clemson is the better team here. I think defensively, they're gonna cover a lot of the. I don't know. I think they're just gonna be control both lines. I think Louisville's, like you said, Louisville's line's not very good, and that's gonna put a lot of pressure on Lamar Jackson. And then he's good, but is he that good? I don't know. That's gonna be a tough one.
I think this game is the one that secures Clemson's place in the playoff. this
I
is their
mean,
toughest out, I think. Even controlling the line like I think they will.
yeah.
Looking for them here on out. Florida State without Francois, they don't have a problem with that. We've not shown anything so far that'll be a problem for them. So I think if they win this, they've got to be, good money to make the playoff. So, or run the table, I should say.
Is Dabo the best coach in the ACC?
If you'd asked me 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have said no. I thought Chad Morris was the biggest coaching part of that, and I thought Dabo was the recruiter, and that was it. But it's hard to argue with results, man.
Yeah.
I thought they'd take a step back, and they just got better. So I want to say, yeah, we'll know when Saban retires how good of a coach Dabo is. So.
Dabo's getting to the point where I don't see he could possibly stay at Clemson forever, and that just worries me.
I think he leaves for Bama. I really do. But
yeah, I think that's what everybody expects. They have to throw. They have the money, so I expect them to throw a lot of money at him. But man, I think he's the best coach in the league. I think he's just getting it done. It was I don't know. I was talking to somebody about this past weekend. I don't know who remembers that whole situation. I believe they fired Tommy Bowden after he won 8 games or something, and Dabo was on his staff, and they promoted him from within, and everybody's like, "Why are you getting into this guy?" Apparently, somebody knew something, and most people didn't, because he's getting it done. I had a lot of respect for what he's doing there, man. He's doing a fantastic job. I'm super jealous. Is probably what it is.
Yeah, but I still wouldn't want to live in Clemson. So,
yeah, probably so. One more question for you, Baker Mayfield. You mentioned the Heisman. Baker Mayfield's your leader in the clubhouse, I think. How do you feel about him planting the flag on the O?
I thought it was funny. I don't see why not.
People get so pissy about these things, man. I thought it was awesome.
If they had lost that game, I would have said he shouldn't have done it. But you come out and back it up and pretty much whip Ohio State at their place. Hey, you take a shit on it if you want. It all worked out for him in the end.
Yeah. I just love the moxie that guy has, man. He's just like, F it, let's do this. We're going to win.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. Good for him. Yeah, me too. People make a big deal of it. It's freaking college football, man. He's just having a good time.
I will say I'm all for it when it doesn't involve us. Like looking back at the Carolina deal a few years ago.
Yeah.
On our field, that's totally different. This is okay because it's not state, but
yeah, and it's Ohio State, so
yeah.
By all means, I'm okay with that too. All right, now for everybody's favorite segment. Dustin's been waiting for. He waits for it every week. How's the LSU offense doing?
Fantastic. Is how they're doing. Threw for 232 yards, rushed for 222. That is balance. That's what it's all about. That's how you keep a defense guessing. That's what we don't do. Mind you, they were playing, I think, Chattanooga, but still. Scored 45 points, balanced. It was a beautiful thing. He's going to be a head coach. He might get the Bama job. I don't know.
He's going to get a job. We said last week he's getting a job next year somewhere. He's going to be a head coach, without a doubt. And it'll be Carolina when Fedora leaves. putting that one on there.
I can't see him going to a school that's getting ready to get slammed with sanctions. So.
Yeah, that's true. Who knows whatever's going to happen with that crap. But that's all I got.
Yeah.
Furman this week. We'll win. FSU next week. We'll see what happens. Yeah. Go Pack.
Yeah, go Pack.